Should we get started? Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Hanukkah Erotica Book Club. I am Raizel, and I'm here with my co-host and stepsister, Malya. Hi, Malya.
Hello.
How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Some exciting feedback after Hot Rabbi.
Yes, Hot Rabbi was quite the feedback solicitor.
What was some feedback that you got?
Well, I have to say, I feel like the book cover really grabbed people. Like, this was the first time. I mean, people love the cover, the art for the podcast in general, but this time I felt like the Hot Rabbi cover deserved some play, and I felt like that really brought the comments coming.
Yeah, I think you're right.
A couple people were like, which one's the rabbi? Which I guess in my, like, I don't know, Orthodox upbringing, gender normative mind, I never even occurred to me would be a question. But I was like, in this case, it's the man, but good point.
Yeah, and also, you know, in the cover with her pink hair and her beautiful curls, like she would have been super hot rabbi.
Totally be hot rabbi. Very like Isabella Friedman meditation retreat, you know.
Yeah, Torah yoga.
All that, absolutely.
Shalom.
Shalom, a nice mikvah dip, pre-Shabbat, all that.
Yeah, I'm really glad we did Hot Rabbi. And, you know, people really seem to appreciate our approach in talking about Hot Rabbi, our gentle and thoughtful approach in talking about some of our feedback for the book with love and care. So I appreciate that. And,
yeah, we took it seriously. And we appreciate contributions to this growing genre, I think is the point.
It is. It is. And again, I'm curious about Hot Lumberjack, and I think we should revisit it.
We have a couple people who seem willing to dip into Hot Lumberjack and sort of report back. So I'm curious to hear sort of, you know, what the word is, if we should revisit it more formally.
Yeah, totally. Another bit of news, Mazel Tov to Jonah Platt. He had a baby girl.
Oh my God, I saw that. So cute.
A little baby girl named Raquel.
Really sweet. Now they have a boy and a girl.
Real cuties. So Mazel Tov to Jonah Platt. And
Absolutely.
Mal, what are we talking about tonight?
Tonight is our first selection of the month, Weather Girl.
Weather Girl by Rachel Lynn Solomon. Now she writes kind of like rom-coms or romances for adults, and also she has written a few YA books. This is one for our population, but she has also written some YA books that I'm curious about. And like I asked when I mentioned last episode, tonight I think one question I have is, what makes a Jewish romance a Jewish romance? Is having Jewish characters enough? You know, how Jewish does a book have to be to fall into this category of Jewish romance? So let's talk about Weather Girl tonight. We'll give a little summary and dive in and talk about the book. What do you think of Weather Girl?
You know, I had in mind, I'm glad that you introduced it by saying she does rom-coms, because I felt like it was I could imagine this being like a romantic comedy. Like I felt like all the characters could be, you know, I was imagining like Torrance being like Reese Witherspoon or something. I don't know. Like I felt like everyone had a type who could play them. So it was cute. And I'm also glad that you introduced it with how Jewish does a book have to be to fit into this category, because you know, this one was definitely in the gray area for me. It's definitely not a Jewish-centric plot in the same way that Hot Rabbi or many of the other books that we've read was. It was sort of like characters who are Jewish, and there's some, you know, some sprinkling of Judaism in there, but it was pretty light.
Okay, so let's start by summarizing the book. So I'll read the description again. Ari Abrams has always been fascinated by the weather, and she loves almost everything about her job as a TV meteorologist. Her boss, legendary Seattle weatherwoman Torrance Hale, who Malya envisions Reese Witherspoon playing, is too distracted by her tempestuous relationship with her ex-husband, the station's news director, to give Ari the mentorship she wants. Ari, who runs on sunshine and optimism, is at her wit's end. The only person who seems to understand how she feels is sweet but reserved sports reporter Russell Barringer. In the aftermath of a disastrous holiday party, Ari and Russell decide to team up to solve their boss's relationship issues period. That was not a period on the library cover of this. It's like the period's ripped out. Between secret gifts and double dates, they start nudging their bosses back together, but their well-meaning meddling backfires when the real chemistry builds between Ari and Russell. Working closely with Russell means allowing him to get to know parts of herself that Ari keeps hidden from everyone. Will he be able to embrace her dark clouds as well as her clear skies? Okay, so Ari's this meteorologist, and Russell Barringer is this sports reporter. And they work at the station, just like the description said, and they go to this holiday party. And right away, Ari notices at this holiday party that it's used to be called a Christmas party. She kind of made a stink about it, and now it is called the holiday party, not the Christmas party or whatever it had previously been called. And instead of a Christmas tree with, only Christmas decorations, there's one Hanukkah ornament.
Right.
She's
it's like
really
effectively still a Christmas party.
Exactly. She's pretty sure she's one of two Jews who work at the station, but it turns out later than, later towards pretty few hours into the party, Russell kind of also tells her he happens to also be Jewish. So they're one of three Jews who work at the station. And they really bond because her boss and his boss used to be married and now have this kind of like toxic relationship, and they're pretty sure that it's kind of getting in the way of work. Their boss's crappy toxic relationship is getting in the way of their ability to work and kind of everyone at the station. And so they decide to kind of like parent trap them back into being together. And while they parent trap them into their bosses into being together, they fall for each other. Ari Abrams and Russell Barringer, our hero and our heroine.
Yep.
I guess a couple things of note that I think is interesting, and I think that the book does well, is that Ari talks about having depression, and I think she does it in a way that feels kind of authentic and gentle. It's interesting because when we talked about Hot Rabbi, I felt like there was a lot of mental health and anxiety and kind of some of those themes that were coming up in Hot Rabbi. I feel like it's done here a little bit differently. Maybe it feels more realistic to me. I'm not really sure. I like the way her depression played a role in this book. What did you think about that?
Totally. Well, I liked how the depression nicely dovetailed with the weather puns.
Yes.
I mean, that was neat.
Yes. Because when she was in a depressed mood, she was calling it a dark day. Those were her dark days.
Right. Yeah. And every chapter was like cloudy with a chance of a hot thunderstorm or like something like that.
Yes.
Like would signal me that it was going to be a sex scene and I should fast forward my audiobook.
Yes.
By the way, I just have to interject a non sequitur. So I listened to this as an audiobook on my commute, and I have to say, like, I mean, maybe this is controversial. I love audiobooks. Like, people are like, I can only read, on the page. No, love it.
No,
However, sex scenes in romance novels read out loud in my car, it's a hard no for me, I have to say. Like, it's too much. I was, skip 30, skip 30,
too much
skip
erotica
30.
for your Hanukkah erotica.
Correct. It was a little too hard on the erotica for me in the audio way. It didn't work personally, but I listened to enough to get the flavor here. But so anyway, they would have some nice puns that also would indicate that there was like steaminess coming. But I thought that the mental health, I think that she said in her little sort of introduction, the author, that she likes to write about Jews that are Jewish the way that she is. And she also likes to write about people who struggle with mental health in the way that she does. So it felt authentic. Like this, there's got to be some autobiographical stuff in every fictional book like this. And it felt like she was writing what she knew. Like there was something genuine about it.
Okay, but by the way, is that the case? Because, and I think in this case there is, because Rachel Lynn Solomon sort of tells us that in the foreword and the intro to the book, right?
Right.
So in this case it is. But back to schmutz, like my mom was like, gotta know more about this, gotta know more, because there's no such thing as fiction. There's no such thing as fiction. But the thing is, like, sometimes a great book is just a great, well-researched, fantastic book that is just fiction, right?
Yeah. No, totally. Yes. I mean, I don't think Felicia Berliner was writing an autobiographical book about
of her like staying up all night watching porn while her sister her frum sister was in the bed next to her, on her way to Beis Yaakov. I don't think so.
Right. No, with lots of tushies and schmundis and all that. No.
The schwanz and the schmundi.
Yes. Oh my God. No, I don't think so. But I do think, like, you know, the way this is, it's the idea of like feeling like your depression would be a burden to somebody who you got romantically involved with and would be something that you would want to hide feels real to me. I mean,
totally,
you know,
totally. I also, you know, part of in this story in Weather Girl, she's at the beginning of the book, she's recently going through a broken engagement, and part of it was that this guy that she had previously been with felt like she was always so sunny and not really real, because I think she was probably afraid to show her real self and tried so hard to be so positive, right? Like, and so yeah, I think that, and this really comes up throughout for her. What do you think of Russell Barringer, the sports dude?
I loved him. I thought he was so endearing and sweet. I mean, and he was a great, I was trying to think of who would play him. Like, I was having a hard time putting my finger on that, because it's like, he's a sports guy. So like at first you're imagining him as kind of like a dude, but then, you know, he's so sweet and sensitive, and you find out he's a single dad, like, also a theme, because the hot rabbit was a single dad as well.
Yep.
A lot of parallels here, actually.
A lot of parallels.
The more I think about it. And so I don't know. He was a great romance hero, like, you know, like manly with a sensitive side.
He was such a nice guy. I love a nice guy. Happens
Very
to be.
nice.
I love a nice guy. He was such a nice guy. He was so, I think, you know, being a single dad, this again, like a little bit more realistic, because he was a single dad, but Liv, the baby mama, was involved, and it wasn't like she was she was 8 states away. You know, she was there in Seattle, and sometimes he had to pick Elodie, his daughter, up there, and you know, I thought he was a really nice guy. I think that maybe, like, I'm going to think about who might play him. One thing I'm really, you know, curious, and I think that another thing that I think she does really well is something else that comes up in this book, is kind of like body positivity, self-image. Russell Barringer, the hero, is either we could say plus size, we could say overweight. They use the word fat in the book,
right.
And he's really self-conscious about it. And Ari likes it. Like, she's into him. She's extremely attracted to him. She thinks he's super hot. He is super hot.
Right.
They have really great chemistry. And I think that the way that that's handled in the book feels really nice and really special. And I think that it's really nice when all different kinds of bodies are represented in a book like this, in a romance, in a sexy book, which this is. And so I really appreciated that.
Totally. And I thought it was really like in the same way that, like, she feels like her depression is a burden, and he's like, no, this is part of who you are, which I love. It's the same thing, like, you know, in one of the sex scenes that I did not fast forward, where he's like, I can keep my shirt on if you're like grossed out by me, and she's like, what are you talking about? Like, the opposite, like, it's you. I want you. And like, but it wasn't, you know, it was a little cheesy, but sweet, you know.
But so sweet.
Yeah,
and it felt very honest to me and possible.
Yeah, totally possible.
Go ahead, you go.
I was gonna say, I felt, though, with the descriptions, I did kind of feel like Torrance and Seth, the bosses, are like the goyish foils for Russell and Ari. Like,
yes.
They're just like uber goyim, I feel like they're blonde and chiseled and, you know, I don't know, like very like Ken and Barbie.
They are.
And Russell and Ari are much more like, we're neurotic, we're in the corner, like we don't fit in, like we're scheming.
She's always wearing like Etsy jewelry or jewelry that she's made that like represents weather. Like she has a lot of weather puns on her sweaters. Like she wears like a brooch that's like a rainy day, and yes. She has like a twee Seattle look about her, like or like Portlandia kind of look about her. And she's into the weather.
Right.
And yes. And she once describes him in like a cranberry blazer or something. I don't know. She describes something
he has
that
like flair, dresses with flair. Yeah, totally.
Yes.
Whereas like Torrance and Seth are like swing dancing. Like, I don't know. Jews don't swing dance, I feel.
Yeah, no, I think that you're totally right. I mean, I definitely know some Jews that swing dance. Like,
Good for them.
significantly
I mean, I support
observant and really good ballroom dancers, maybe there's an overlap there.
Probably.
But yeah, no, I think that you're totally right about that. But like this also kind of contributes back to this idea that like this is a rom-com and could be a film. Like it
Yeah,
really
yeah.
there was a lot of the scenes, the detail that that she writes with, and just all the different characters. There's a lot of characters, right? Like you have Torrance and Seth, you have people who work at the news station, you obviously have Ari and Russell, you have his daughter Elodie who's about to become a bat mitzvah and that whole thing, right? There's a lot of like really kind of a lot of imagery and characters that come up. By the way, I was going to read that part that you described so well about him in the shirt, but you described it so perfectly. There's no reason for me to. I have it highlighted here. I was going to read it, but there's no reason for me to read it because that's exactly what happens. So you didn't fast forward that yet.
No, that stood out to me. Okay,
yeah,
listen, maybe I listened to a little bit of the sex scenes. Okay, fine.
The thing about listening to sex scenes, by the way, is like there's full apps for this. Like there's an app that's advertised on a lot of podcasts I listen to called Dipsy, and it's like for women. It's specifically like an app. I don't know if it's for women by women or who it's by, but it's like an app for women to listen to erotica. So it's definitely like you might not be in the minority. Most people might find it cringe to listen to sex scenes, but there's definitely enough people who want to listen to sex scenes that there's full products for it.
I get that. I totally get it.
Yeah. I do too. I listened to this and I read it. And there is something about listening. Yeah, I mean, because also like the narrator has to like get really into the scene,
right? And like change
like
the
breathy
tone of her
and like
voice.
be breathy.
Yeah. And then
like the
change the way that
breathiness.
the characters are talking.
She sort of has to like take a pause when she finishes.
Yeah.
It's a bit much.
Yeah, right. That's what I'm saying. Like, I kind of like to imagine all that in my own head and not have to have anyone else like laying it out there for me.
Totally. No, I know it, but I'm with you, by the way. And like people who poo-poo audiobooks, very silly. We're both avid readers, but we also are busy and love listening to a book.
Totally.
Completely great. So I liked a lot about the characters. I liked a lot about both Ari and Russ. There's also a complicated relationship with her mom and her mom's mental health.
Yes.
And I think that one thing that I think is fun in books is when they talked about Parent Trap themselves. Like I like when instead of just stealing the plot of the movie The Parent Trap, they actually, name it. And they're like, you mean the Lindsay Lohan cult classic Parent Trap? Like I appreciate that.
Totally. Yeah. It's a little more self-conscious. So it's cute and not just like ridiculous.
Exactly. I really do. I like that. I think it's fun and I appreciate it.
Yes.
I thought that they were a great couple. In terms of like the Jewish piece, like these are two people who are Jewish.
Right.
And I think being Jewish is a big part of her identity. And I think that's like the part that might be the for you, because I think that there are a tremendous amount of people who grow up as secular Jews who feel that being Jewish is a big part of their identity, certain customs, holidays, values that they've learned, ways in which they've observed, different things in their life that they, were passed down by their, parents and family and things like that. But it's not at all about like law. It's not at all about halacha or anything like that at all. They're obviously not religious. Like as they're talking about Judaism, like this, like I'll give you an example. If this was KK Hendon's characters and they were at their holiday party, they would be talking about all the treif, right? Like all the food that was there. It was like there's nothing for them to eat. That would be really tricky for them. Like she'd have, whatever, a backpack full of
she'd be
tuna
looking
packets.
The tuna packets out again. Yeah, exactly.
Right. So, but in this case, like they're kind of like laughing, like, oh yeah, not much of a holiday party. It's really just a Christmas party, and they like look at the little, tiny Hanukkah ornament, but then they're like, at least the food's great. And they're like piling like scallops and filet mignon and like
Right.
lobster mac and cheese onto their plate.
Yeah. That all sounded really good, by the way.
Delicious. But
Yeah.
the thing is, like, that's like there are so many people who identify as Jewish and also like pile on the lobster mac and cheese. So I appreciate these kinds of characters. Like when we look at how many romance books exist in this world, like they're just cranking them out, churning them out week after week, like Kindle Unlimited. There seems like unlimited Kindle Unlimited.
Start now and our whole lives could be expended.
Like, there's just exactly, and so to have characters like this who are Jewish, and not just like it comes up once we're Jews, like they talk about synagogue, they talk about there's a Shabbat scene where her mom's lighting the candles at Shabbat dinner. Like there's no kugel being sent around the table, like they're eating a lasagna, but she lights the candles, she makes the blessing. There's also a Hanukkah party with her family where she's like, if I hear the dreidel song one more time, like, which I think is funny because I'm not really sure that anyone's like singing the dreidel song on repeat at any Hanukkah party.
Right. There were like small kids. There were like her niece and nephew who seemed to be getting like a Jewish upbringing, and she was talking about like doing some Jewish things with them.
Totally. Hamantashen comes up at one point.
Right.
And then, I think that the biggie, like the big pivotal Jewish moment is like Elodie is studying for her bat mitzvah.
Right. And then the bat mitzvah itself.
And then, spoiler alert, pause here if you're going to finish the book, but spoiler alert, they break up at some point. They get together, okay, and then they break up.
Seemed like a pretty classic arc there.
Pretty classic.
Yeah.
They break up, and as a reader, you're frustrated because, like, if they just communicated a drop more, they wouldn't have had to have that breakup. But I guess it's needed.
The conflict in this book is like pretty thin, I have to say. Like,
agree.
It's like you're kind of straining it. Like you broke up over basically like I don't even know what, like an etiquette faux pas. Like I don't know.
Exactly, but it happened.
Right.
And then during the time of the breakup, where Ari's like pretty devastated and kind of like avoiding Russell at work, Elodie sends her a bat mitzvah invitation, so she gets invited. Elodie's voice is so not like a 12-year-old the way that she writes. I don't know if you remember that
She's
part.
like fully like in her 20s, like
She like writes a letter like the likes of which I don't even know that I could have written. She's like, it says, there's an invitation waiting for me at home. This is towards the very end of the book. You are cordially invited to Elodie Watson Barringer's bat mitzvah. It's spelled on the front in marquee style letters. At first I assumed Russell must have sent it before the breakup, but then I turn it over and find the confident loopy cursive of a 12-year-old instead. Dear Ari, as you know, I've been spending the past year preparing for my bat mitzvah, and while it's maybe not as thrilling as the opening night of a Broadway show, I'm excited and only partially for the presents and party afterward. I wanted to say thank you again for, well, read it, you'll know what she means, and for you to come watch me become a woman if you can make it. I'm not entirely sure what happened with you and my dad, but I've never seen him happier than when he was with you. He was so stoked to go to work in a way he has never been. Like, okay, he always loved sports, but he'd spend more time getting ready in the morning. Sometimes he'd even ask my opinion on his clothes. It was cute, but also embarrassing, which I guess is my dad in a nutshell. So even if he hasn't said anything to you about it, I think he'd really, really love it if you came to Elodie. What?
Yeah, it's like very complex sentence structure for a 12-year-old, it feels.
I just don't see it. Like...
Right.
It's a really beautiful thing that she's so supportive of her dad, getting with Ari.
But is a 12-year-old ever going to be that? Like, they met 3 times, you know what I mean? Like, or I don't know, maybe they met 6 times, but still, like.
I know. So she gets this invite. She's very moved by this letter, and she shows up to the bat mitzvah. This is one of those forecasts, partly sunny with a chance of extraordinary courage. She goes to the bat mitzvah. It's like, the synagogue is new to me, a gorgeous building in Seattle's upscale Madison Park. So it starts describing the synagogue. Shabbat shalom, the security guard says. Shabbat shalom. I straightened the rain cloud brooch on my modest plum dress. See, she's always wearing some kind of like kitschy weather jewelry. Anyway, she goes to the bat mitzvah. There's a whole bat mitzvah scene, both in the shul and then at the party. And I think that it's really very accurately described, and I thought it was really fun.
Yeah, it was actually, I wasn't expecting to learn much from Weather Girl, and to be honest, I did not learn much from Weather Girl, but one thing that I learned, actually, that was refreshing to me is that, like, when it was describing her experience going to the synagogue, she had a positive experience. She said she liked it, but there was no expression of, like, I can't believe I haven't been to synagogue in so long. I should really go to synagogue more, which I feel like most, I don't know, like Jewish books where it's like a lapsed Orthodox, someone with a more religious upbringing, even who's become less so, or whatever it is, who's more fraught about their religious identity. Shul is always like, I'm having a nice time, but am I really? I should be coming more often. Why don't I come more often? She's just very like, yeah, I like this, and I'm like not gonna come back again until there's a reason to, and that's totally fine. Like she's very
Totally.
happy with the current state of her involvement with Shul and feels no like, I don't know, guilt or need for anything
Nothing.
to change.
Totally. She goes on the holiday. She goes on the high holidays.
Right.
And she goes when she's invited to something.
Right. And that's totally fine.
Exactly. Exactly. One thing I thought was interesting was there was a scene where Russell was at Ari's mom's house. I don't know if that was the Shabbat scene. I can't remember exactly. But she's like, oh, where do you go to temple or to synagogue? Or I don't remember the exact language. And then he's like, I don't go. But wouldn't he say, I don't go, but my daughter is getting bat mitzvahed at XYZ shul? Like,
right.
You kind of do go. Like, I also thought it was interesting
Right.
with this whole concept of like Liv and I, his baby mama, Elodie's mom, when he's like, Liv and I decided that she could decide for herself. Liv's not Jewish. She's like, I am Jewish. And we decided that she could decide for herself. You kind of have to give your child a foundation. Like, they can't just decide for themselves. Like, are you enrolling them in Hebrew school? Are you giving them a Jewish education? Like, Elodie didn't just decide for herself. Like, they must have done something. So he does do something,
Right.
or
Especially
go somewhere.
in their lives, there's no like context for even like what a bat mitzvah would be unless they were somehow like educating her to have to understand what it is. Like
You can't just, right. You can't just have a bat mitzvah out of thin air. Like, you have to be affiliated with some community, congregation, synagogue, minyan, like something.
right.
So it was interesting that that part didn't exactly line up because he's like, I don't go. She's doing a great job though. He's like, she has to go every Saturday. It's like, to where?
Right. And like how did she find that place? She didn't like wander around and select it on her own. Like
Right. And you're the Jewish parent, so obviously you probably helped
Sure.
Russell.
right. Right. He's acting like it's all this like happy accident.
Right.
But
and
that,
also,
that felt like true about his whole attitude toward fatherhood, though, honestly. It was very just like, we were just crazy kids, but like somehow she's this like happy, well-adjusted kid with like great grades and extracurriculars, and she could write sentences like a 25-year-old. Like, I don't know. It all seemed a little too like careless to like, maybe he was just trying to make a show of how sort of like it all just happened and it wasn't because of him. I don't know.
I don't know. I really don't. But Elodie was an awesome kid.
She seemed great.
Is an awesome kid. She'd be
Totally.
great in a movie. And her bat mitzvah scene would be awesome. I love a bat mitzvah scene in a movie.
Yeah,
in
bat mitzvah
general,
seems
bar and bat
romantic.
or,
Also,
you know-
any like life cycle event could be romantic. You know, I
Yes.
mean, you know, it's like passage of time, blah blah blah.
Totally. Beautiful. Beautiful. But yeah, I did think that, that part didn't exactly line up because it can't just happen out of nowhere. You have to make a conscious parenting decision. As
Right.
a parent, thinking about this with my own kids, it's like, you make a conscious decision about how you want to raise your children through a Jewish lens. Actually, it was funny. Saturday night there was a like meet. When like a cantor or a rabbi is doing like it's called something like a trial weekend. Like they're doing a cantor search at the shul, and then the cantor comes for a whole weekend to like do Friday night and do Shabbat and like a bunch of different things.
Yes.
And the community gets to see. It has a name, I can't remember, but that's happening. That was happening at our shul this past weekend for a new cantor, which
It's like auditions.
yes, like
basically.
that.
Yeah.
Exactly. But like, first of all, great premise for a book, but okay.
That
like
is a good
hot
premise.
rabbi.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, hot cantor.
Totally. Hot cantor. So I took, so there was a Havdalah thing. It was like Havdalah for the kids and pizza bagels and s'mores, and like come see the cantor for like, a musical fun Havdalah. I'm like, this is a
Sweet.
great thing. I'm going to
Yeah.
take Benny. So we took her. She had the best time. Like she was
Aw.
truly like running around shul like a complete maniac, which made me very happy. Like, when
Love
you're so
that.
comfortable someplace that you run around like a complete loon, like
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
what she was doing.
So
I
great.
really, really appreciated that.
That's core
And then-
Jewish memories right there.
I know it is. That's exactly. And like, And the rabbi and like our Hebrew school director like came up and they were like, I was like, I love this. I'm so happy that Benny's doing this right now. And they were like, didn't you run around your shul as a kid? I was like, yes, the bridal suite. And everyone started laughing because I think like the bridal suite was like a thing in a lot of shuls.
Yeah, totally. It's a great place to like hide out. Yeah.
Exactly. And we get back into the car after and she goes, oh, who knew that was going to be so much fun? I was like, not me. I'm so happy. It was really, really, really fun. But the whole point is like that doesn't just happen. You have to get in the car and go, or you have to walk. Like you have to get there. And this kid, Elodie, was going to shul every Saturday in preparation for her bat mitzvah. So I thought it was weird when he was like, I don't go, because even if you don't go, you're affiliated in some way because your kid's getting bat mitzvahed. Anyway, whew, long rant.
Agreed. I totally agree. Maybe he was like hiding the sort of like banal details of fatherhood from her because he thought like she doesn't have a kid, she wouldn't be interested.
Right. It's possible.
I don't know.
It is possible. He seemed like a super great dad. He was a super nice colleague and a super adorable boyfriend. And I thought that they had a really nice connection. Like they, it was like, it was more fun than a regular office romance. I don't know if it's because like you're sort of like in this newsroom and there's something that's just like fun about that. But there's like this newsroom, and then like many romances and books kind of in general, like they took us to a lot of different places. There's like a company retreat, there was this yacht, they're going swing dancing, there's parties, there's the sports games they go to, like they're in all these different scenes together, like trying to get the bosses together, but then kind of connecting and I liked it. I liked their connection.
The scene
I liked
where
Seattle.
he like helps her get undressed after she sprained her arm or whatever, that was a little bit of a groan to me. Like, come on.
Yeah. I mean, I wonder, like, what did you think should have happened, though? In this scene, for our listeners, like, she falls down a wet staircase, actually, because she's, like, spying on Torrance and Seth, I think, and then falls.
Yeah.
Like, fractures her wrist or something like that. And she can't move, and he's helping her in this hotel room, like, take her clothes off. And it's like, she's sort of turned on, and I think he is too, but he's like trying to be extremely respectful.
He says later on that he was, but he was being gentlemanly.
Right. Yeah. So I don't know.
Like, you could get undressed, but come on, like anyone who's been a parent with a new baby knows you could do anything with one arm, including getting undressed. Like she didn't need his help. She didn't need him. Whatever he was doing, he like unhooked her bra without looking. I don't know. It just seemed ridiculous.
Right. Like truly, right. And even like back to Benny, like my 6-year-old, she gets kind of like fixated on certain things. And do you know what like Go Noodle is? And these kids bop dancers, like there's a kids bop dancer that she really likes who only has one leg. She has a prosthetic leg. Mm-hmm. So, and she's an amazing dancer with a prosthetic leg. So then she's like, oh my God, tell me more. How did she get a prosthetic leg? Am I going to get a prosthetic leg? I had to show her. I had to do a little research on all this, she got really into it. But the thing is, like, you can have only one leg and be a very accomplished dancer. Similarly, there's this Peloton instructor who has only one arm. He doesn't have a prosthetic. He just has one arm. So you could be in incredible shape and an amazing athlete with only one arm. Probably Ari did not need Russell Barringer undressing her. You're right. But it worked for the scene, I guess. Got them a little bit closer.
If you're right, if you're looking for a device for like, it was a build up to later on, I guess.
It was a build up to later on. I think, totally. It definitely made the heat turn up for them. Yes, right, exactly.
Yes,
It did. No, so yeah, I think in general, here's the thing, like it's less, because it's not. It is. I think they are both Jewish, and it's Jewish in nature because they're both Jewish, and there's a handful of things that happen that have to do with their Judaism, right? But they're not Orthodox. They're completely unaffiliated, actually. Like, it's not that they're, I have a pet peeve when people are like, I'm Reform, like, but what they mean is they're not practicing, like.
Right.
They're secular. They're totally secular Jews.
Right.
They mentioned that Seattle has only 2% of a Jewish population, which I thought was really interesting.
Right.
But I think that to weave this kind of Jewish character into the story is pretty cool. Like Ari's character had previously not dated Jewish guys. I think she was like kind of psyched when she learned that Russell was Jewish. Mm-hmm. I don't think it had a huge part of why. It wasn't a huge part of why they connected. I think it did. Their Judaism wasn't a big part of their connection.
Right, but I guess I wonder. is the book somehow, because like I said, I felt like the other couple in the book are like very much not Jews. And I just wonder, is the book somehow implying or sending a message that like Jews are more brooding or Jews are more like complex? Because like Seth and Torrance were not complex. They were like a ambitious sports guy, ambitious newscaster woman. Like her lipstick was always perfect. Makeup. Right, exactly. Like it's like even the things that they broke up over were sort of like, I don't know, just like very banal, like surface type
superficial
things.
Yeah,
yeah, exactly. So I was wondering if they were like, if they were like the poster non-Jews, and then the other, Russell and Ari were the Jews, or is it saying like Jews are darker, Jews are deeper, Jews have more, or like quirky, or have more like, neurotic, exactly. Like I felt like maybe there was a little bit of that going on.
Yeah, there could be. I'm sure if there is, it was unintentional. I'd be curious to talk to Rachel Lynn Solomon about that. I feel like she'd probably even respond if I you know my success rate with DMing.
Very high.
Very high. Really very high.
Stratospheric.
So I would be curious to send her a voice note and see what she thinks about that. By the way, that's often my move. I'll send a voice note. People really seem to appreciate that.
Interesting.
But yes, I think that, yeah, I'm just letting you know, people seem to listen to them and like them.
I'm going to keep that tip in my back pocket.
Yeah, a voice note. No, but I'm really curious about that. I'm actually, I think you're right. I feel like it was unintentional, but I don't disagree with you. And then the other thing is that in one of the reviews I read, someone was like, there are a bunch of microaggressions against Jews, like only one Hanukkah decoration at this holiday party. But then I'm like, is that a microaggression? Do I just not expect that kind of representation? Also, like, we're New Yorkers, so if the population is not 2%, like, we're surrounded by tons of Jews. Also, like, I work in the Jewish world, like, you've worked in the Jewish nonprofit world your whole life, like, we're not in a 2% situation, but even still, it's like, I don't know, is it a microaggression to only have one Jewish piece of holiday decor at a otherwise Christmas party? Or is it a microaggression when in public school all the songs are like wintry or more Christmassy than Hanukkah? Or is it? Because I don't know. I never think about it in that way. I sort of just, it feels like the norm to me. But is it actually more anti-Semitic than I've thought about?
Yeah, it never occurred to me as being. It's just like that's the dominant culture, like,
right?
There's all other kinds of, there's many other holidays that are celebrated during that season and that are generally not represented at all. I mean, is that a microaggression? I don't know. It just feels like there's, it's not speaking to so many people, so it just hasn't made its way in. I don't know, but I don't know. It doesn't feel like a microaggression. I don't experience it as a microaggression, I guess I'll say that.
I don't either. So yeah, so I was surprised by that. I don't experience it as a microaggression. But the thing is, Ari actually is really annoyed. Like, she does not want to wear a Christmas hat on TV, like, on Christmas. She does not want to wear a Santa hat. Like, she actually is really annoyed.
That's also a theme, like, in the KK Hendon book. And I feel like that's overblown. Like, I don't know these Jews who are so irritated by Christmas and, like, really want Hanukkah so front and center. Like, I don't know those people. I think most people are like, yeah, like, it's generally the Christmas season and, that's cool. Whatever. I don't know.
Right. It's festive, but I don't know, but it just got me thinking, like, maybe there's something here. I don't know. But yeah, I'm not sure. But you know what? We're going to keep diving into this because there's a lot of Hanukkah. We're not going to be reading Hanukkah books from now until Hanukkah. This one did, Christmas did come up in this book in Hanukkah, but there's a lot more that's going to come up next Hanukkah for us. So yes. We'll keep reading and we'll keep seeing what happens. Can I read you a review or two of this book that I saw?
Please.
Okay, this one was someone on Amazon named Lauren Freeman. She gave it 5 stars, and the subject is 5 stars. She goes, maybe I'm biased. Maybe this is a PMS-related 5-star read, but this book made my heart grow 3 sizes this day.
Aww.
I related so much to Ari. I loved Russell so much. A good, kind, loving man, regardless of size or baggage, is the realest and most desirable kind of hero that every single woman worth her salt really wants. The dates. The conversations, the intimacy. I read a lot of romance novels, but this one is what I want my love story to look like. Beautiful.
Wow.
She loved it.
That was a very
There's another,
enthusiastic review.
I know.
So sweet. That's true.
I know.
He was a really sweet. He was a nice, sweet guy. Totally.
He was
really
he was so sweet. He was cool too. He was like kind of cool, and he was hot and
right.
You know, he was very attracted. They were very attracted to each other.
Well, there was the whole subplot about how like the depression medication made it difficult for her to, you know, get into stuff, and he made it work.
He did. He really did. And that was really very sexy.
Totally.
Here's another one. Truly stunning book about depression and love. Spoilers below. If I could rate this 10 stars, I would. Ari is a meteorologist at the local TV show. I'm going to skip that.
Right.
This book ruined me. It felt so...
Oh my God.
It felt so close to home because Ari struggles with depression, something she got from her mother, who she resents. Russ is a fat single father who had a child at 17. He's insecure but has a heart of gold. Ari totally falls for Russ, and it's steamy and gentle and wonderful. The big issue is that she's terrified he'll leave her when she's in a depression rut, parentheses, dark days, so she ends up breaking this off with him. Boy, oh, did this hit home for me because I have felt the exact same way. This book is so kind toward mental illness. I am a Rachel Lynn Solomon fan for life now.
Wow.
That was by Kat D. And then another review, by the way. Subject was meh. Review, meh.
Meh. I like that.
That's it. Subject, review. Meh. Meh. Not into
descriptive.
it.
Okay.
1 star. Not into it. So,
Eek.
yeah.
Right, it's not for everyone.
Yep.
It's fine.
Not for everyone, but I recommend it to our listeners. We have some listeners who love weather, by the way. We have listeners that already have read and loved this book. And I am going to recommend that we read another book of Rachel Lynn Solomon's called The X Talk around April.
Oh, great. I look forward. She's a good writer.
Yeah. She is. Mm-hmm. She really is.
Yeah.
So,
are we gonna do our 8 candles?
Yeah, let's do it. Feel like, and are we rating the steaminess or just like how much we recommend the book?
I think maybe an amalgam of both.
Okay, then I'm gonna say 6.5.
Oh wow, that's good.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say 5.
Yeah, 5's fair. Here's the thing: this book is very readable.
Totally.
Very, very readable. Lots of different fun characters. A lot of steaminess, which we glossed over.
Right. Good amount of steaminess.
A great amount of steaminess, if that's what you're looking for.
Mm-hmm. I mean, not
depth.
multiple. Where there's not
multi-chapter.
Not multi-chapter, but you know, I mean, you can't have it all.
I bet Hop Lumberjack though will have multi-chapter sex by Aviva Blake.
Absolutely not. No.
But yeah, no, 5 and 6.5. These were good ratings and a great book. And I love
fun.
talking to you about it.
Same.
Okay, so what is up next for us? Next, we are reading An Unorthodox Match by Naomi Reagan. Should I read the description?
Yes. Naomi Reagan is like the OG Jewish romance novel author, I feel.
She really is. Yes. She's been around for a very long time because when I first read her, which feels like close to 15 or 20 years ago, I felt like they were old books. Yes. It wasn't like I was reading new books.
Yeah, I honestly didn't know she had newer books, so this is exciting.
Yeah, this is one from 2019, An Unorthodox Match.
Great.
California girl Lola has her life all set up. Business degree, handsome fiancé, fast-track career, when suddenly, without warning, everything tragically implodes. After years fruitlessly searching for love, marriage, and children, she decides to take the radical step of seeking spirituality and meaning far outside the parameters of modern life in the insular, ultra-Orthodox enclave of Borough Park, Brooklyn. There, fate brings her to the dysfunctional home of the newly widowed Jacob, a devout Torah scholar whose life is also in turmoil and whose small children are aching for the kindness of a womanly touch. While her mother direly predicts she is ruining her life, enslaving herself to a community that is a misogynistic religious cult, Lola's heart tells her something far more complicated. But it is the shocking and unexpected messages of her new community itself which will finally force her into a deeper understanding of the real choices she now faces and which ultimately decide her fate. By the way, I read this book. I feel like that's not really...
Wow. That was a
the
crazy
best
description. I don't even know what that...
It's like an odd description. Like, I don't feel like that was the book I read.
Nothing even happened in that description. I don't even know what that was.
It's odd. And also, like, Lola was her... This is a story about a Baal Teshuva who goes by Leia. Lola's her, name
Right, her slave name.
from birth.
Yeah.
Like, anyway, we're reading an unorthodox match next. It's book about a Baal Teshuva who, meets this widower
Cool.
named Yaakov, and we'll talk about it.
Great.
On our next episode. So we are releasing an episode twice a month now, every other week. And if you want to read along with us, check out an unorthodox match.
Please do. And tell us what you think.
Yeah.
And leave us a review on our podcast.
Yes, but if you're the one person who asked how I write a review and I said, no, you don't need to, don't worry, don't write us a review. Malya, my mom, was like, I'd love to write a review, but I don't know how. And I was like, Mommy, it's okay. She's like, no, I would start off by saying, in the spirit of full disclosure. And I said, Mommy, I don't feel comfortable with our only review being from my mom.
It's like the perfect thing for a Jewish podcast. It's like loved by my mother.
So this podcast is very much loved by our parents, Malya's dad and my mom.
Yes,
they are
huge fans.
Really huge fans of the pod.
Yes.
Really appreciate it.
So nice.
But if you're anyone other than them who
Right.
wants to leave us a review, rate us 5 stars, leave us a review, we would love to have some reviews.
Right. Don't just write meh. That's not appreciated.
No, if you feel meh, find a podcast
move
that
on.
speaks
Yeah,
to you.
totally.
Move on. Tons of podcasts out there. But yeah, our parents are such big fans that they actually, they'd love if we just had a podcast where we just catch up on anything. Like truly anything. Your dad's like, you should talk about other topics. You should just have a Like he wants us just to have a daily podcast where we just shoot the shit for sure.
My mom listened to the podcast and immediately downloaded Menorah in the Middle. She was like, I had
Wow.
to watch it after you guys talked about it.
Wow.
So,
Wow,
we're
amazing.
really, we're influencers. I mean, we're influencing
It's
people's
amazing.
purchasing choices here. It's a big
It
deal.
is incredible. We are having an
Most
impact
of
on
those
what
people
people
gave
are.
birth to us, but hey.
Yeah, of course, most of those people gave birth to us, but there's others.
Right,
There's others,
right.
and I'm honored. So write a review if you're anyone, but you know who.
Yeah.
But we appreciate how much you love our podcast and how supportive you are of this project.
Thank you.
We love you.
We do.
Okay. This was really fun. We'll see you all in 2 weeks for an unorthodox match. Hanukkah Erotica Book Club sound is by William Levin. Art's by Gal Dor, who told me I don't have to keep saying that and that she doesn't need to be tagged in any more posts.
Okay. People love the art, though.
I know, it's so
It's
good.
really good.
It's so good. Gal does listen, so thank you, Gal. But we
Yes.
will not keep tagging you. She goes, I never allow it. When you can.
So funny. She rejects
know.
our tags.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Hey, I respect that.
Yeah, me too. All right. Good night, Mom.
Good
Bye,
night.
everyone. Thanks so
Bye-bye.
much for listening.